Now by Julie Zaugg, a journalist in Hong Kong. Julie, appreciate you joining us. You know, I have to say, as we are running this piece, I mean, this sounds like such a familiar story. I've read so many books written by female North Korean defectors, and it seems like one of the common threads is that they talk about how their broker takes them over into the border, into China, and the first thing that happens is that a Chinese man or somebody purchases them at the border, and immediately they're forced into the sex trade. How common is that?
That's actually incredibly common. So NGOs estimate that about 70 to 80% of women that cross into China actually end up being trafficked. So some of them will be sold by their initial broker, who passes them on to a second broker, then to a third, fourth, fifth broker. They pass into different hands like that. And they get sold each time, and they finally end up being sold to the operator of a cybersex chat room. And some other women actually just end up knocking on doors once they cross the border, Chinese people's homes, and then get sold by these people onto a broker.
And trying to escape, I mean, that has to be extremely frightening for these girls and women, because if they're caught as a North Korean refugee, well, they're not really seen as refugees because China will send them right back to North Korea, risking their own lives, right? So even trying to escape or finding a good Samaritan to help them is a risk in itself.
Yes, definitely. China doesn't consider them as political refugees, even though the UN has repeatedly said it should. It considers them as illegal economic migrants, and thus decides to send them back when it catches them. And for someone being sent back to North Korea, that means facing probably weeks of interrogation and torture, and then several months or even several years in a political re-education camp or in a labor camp, depending on the gravity, according to North Korea, of what they've done. And so the ones that face the harshest punishment are usually the ones that are deemed to have had contact with South Korean people in China or with South Korean missionaries.
I mean, do we have any idea as to how many North Korean girls and or women are trapped or being held against their will in China right now?
No, no one has exact figures. Some NGOs have estimated that there could be up to 200,000 North Korean people living in the border areas of China. The only exact figures we do have are the ones published by South Korea that calculates how many people are coming into South Korea. But that's right at the end of the journey, so it's obviously just the tip of the iceberg. And that's about 1,000 people a year.
I mean, it's great and just selfless and incredible that you have people like the South Korean pastor who are orchestrating these escape attempts. But what about the Chinese government? Is it prioritizing finding these women or protecting them in any way?
No, definitely not protecting them. Yeah, like I said, it considers them as illegal economic migrants. So it actually goes through a lot of effort to find these women and then repatriate them back to North Korea. There have been reports of some police stations even giving out rewards to Chinese people that could provide information about these North Korean refugees.
And what about the perpetrators? I mean, the people, the men in China who forcibly take these women as their brides on farms, or hold them against their will and rape them over and over, or force them into these chat rooms. Do they ever get brought to justice?
Not that I know of. No, I think that would be a very rare occurrence. And yeah, in terms of the farmers that are buying these wives, they're usually just individuals, whereas the people running the cybersex chat rooms tend to be small entrepreneurs that usually have 4 or 5 flats with women in them. They're not usually linked to big crime syndicates. It's more small operations.
It's so saddening. You know, you have these girls and women who are so desperate, willing to risk their lives to try to make it over to the border, knowing possibly some of the dangers that they face. And this is what happens to so many of these females from North Korea. Just a horrible story. Julie, we appreciate you joining us. Julie Zaugg, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Hungarian